You can be good at something and still not want to do it. Let's get the jitters out. Glasses or no glasses? Well, I can't really see if there's no glasses. I haven't done a long form video in a minute. I've been doing the short form content, and I'm trying to figure out, not really trying to figure out, I'm doing what I want to do, okay? I'm doing what I want to do. And what I want to do is talk about whatever I want to talk about, and that's random. And today is one of those videos. I know what I'm going to title this, but I'm sure you know what I'm going to be talking about. So today I'm going to be talking about the signs I knew. Wait, what? What am I saying? How I knew therapy was not for me anymore, and coming from the perspective of a former therapist or a licensed therapist who is no longer practicing actually. I'm feeling a little nervous. I don't really know why, and now I'm about to explain why. I think one of the reasons could be is that I never wanted to really talk about mental health here. I really didn't. I don't think I ever saw myself sharing that I like my profession really, because I wanted to keep some parts private. So I think that's part of the nervousness or whatever. And I also, as a licensed professional, I don't ever want to come off as if I know everything, I know all of the things, because that is so not the case. And that is going to be one of the points, actually, one of the things that plagues me every day. But anyway, let's get into it. Something that I don't think that I've shared on this channel about myself is that I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And as a licensed clinical social worker, you can practice independently, doing a therapy, consulting, whatever it is. I have been a social worker for the past almost 10 years now, which is crazy because I do not feel that old. But yeah, I've been a social worker since 2015, 16. Okay, to be a licensed clinical social worker, you have to get your master's in social work. Obviously, I got my bachelor's in social work, and I did an advanced standing program and did graduate school in a year and was licensed as a master social worker, so LMSW, or it's probably LSW depending on the state that you're in. And then I've been in LCSW, so ability to practice on my own, for the past 5 years. Okay, so I started off doing what most postgrads do for the most part, is case management type of work. And I started in New York City. I got my first big girl job in New York City, doing home visits, working with different populations, difficult stuff, crazy stories. I can go on for days. And then I transitions out of like nonprofit world, like agency, into like the hospital setting. Okay, and so let me back up. The reason that I'm doing this video is because it's been in my drafts for a really long time. As ideas pop up, I write them in my phone. And recently I started a new job. If you've been on my channel, you know that I recently moved to Florida, and the reason that I moved to Florida was for a job. And I have been at this job for a couple of months now, and I'm like, I love it. This fits my personality so well. I could see myself thriving in this position. I feel like I am already thriving in this position. And it made me think about why my previous jobs were not a good fit. And I'm not saying this job is perfect. It's still been a couple of months. You know, in the beginning, it's the honeymoon phase. You know, things feel good now, or like they kind of feel like a mix of like good, like, oh wow, I could see myself doing this for some time, and then sometimes I'm like, oh my goodness, there's a lot to learn. But overall, I'm feeling like this, where I am now, fits me perfectly, which made me reminisce about why my previous job did not fit me. And what's interesting about that is being a therapist was my dream job. It was my dream job. And it's very crazy when you enter your dream job to come to find out that it is not what you actually want to do, even if you are good at it. You can be good at something and still not want to do it, which is crazy to me. So this is for all of my aspiring therapists, aspiring social workers, or social workers right now, therapists right now, who are thinking, I don't know if this is the role for me. Hopefully this video is helpful for you. I'm going based off of like random notes in my phone, so bear with me. I grew up as like a reserved, quiet kid. And so, you know, when you grow up reserved, quiet, kind of like muffled and silenced by people around you, you have no other choice but to observe people, their behavior, their words, their actions. And for me, I didn't really have a voice of my own growing up. I let other people drown it out. And so by default, I kind of became that person that just sat in the background and I just so happened to see a lot of things. And I saw enough things eventually to be like, I've seen this before, and I think this is what this means because this is what happened last time. So I'm good at connecting the dots and sensing things, right? That is my gift. That is not so easily, it's not so easily recognizable. Okay. So I knew early on that I wanted to be a social worker. Well, I knew in high school because I met someone at my church, my Sunday school teacher, who made me feel safe. She made me feel good. She was the first person in my life that I felt like actually listened to me, and I never knew what that felt like. And I was like, I want to hold on to this feeling forever. And I don't know what she, at the moment, what she was doing, how she was speaking to me, how that transformed me later on in life. Now that I think back, she was basically validating me. That was it. It was something very, very simple, but something I had never experienced. And so I told myself from that day on, when I had a conversation with her, that I want to make people feel the way that she made me feel. And so in order to do that, I needed to find out what she did for a living. And so once I asked her, what you did for a living, she said social worker. From then on, I knew once I went to college that I had to be a social worker. And that was maybe around, I want to say 9th grade, maybe 8th, 9th grade, around that time when I made that realization and when I had that conversation that was so transformative for me. So I knew going into college that I would be doing that, and I knew I would have to go to grad school, yada yada. Fast forward, let's fast forward. Okay, I get my clinical license and an opportunity comes up for me to be a therapist during the pandemic. At this point, I had been a social worker for maybe 4 or 5 years or so, and I'm like, okay, I think it's time. I think I can do it. The door is open. Why not just go for it? I went for it. I got the job. Everything was amazing. It was nerve-wracking because it was something new. It was something that I felt like I had a big responsibility, you know, to care for people, to listen to people. And I took this very, 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 very serious. So at the same time that I was starting to be a therapist, I was learning at the same time. And so I had enough background to know like the basics, but like being one-on-one with someone was something that was very, very, very terrifying for me. But it was something that was worth being terrified for because it's something that I dreamt about and thought about for so long. And I finally got to the point where I was like, wow, I am doing it and it feels great. Okay, so I did it for two and a half years or so. And towards the end, this is how I knew that maybe this is not for me. And we're 10 minutes in and this is me just getting to the point. Oh my goodness. Geez. Okay, so sign number one that I knew that therapy wasn't for me is that I kept on asking myself if therapy was for me. This is personally, I found in my life, the pattern is if I keep questioning something over and over and over again, that may be an indicator that I should look at this thing closely and it's probably not for me. There's a difference between looking at something with, you know, curiosity and exploring and coming to a conclusion about it and, you know, being at peace with it. But this, I just kept on going in circles around and around and around and around and around. I just kept on asking myself, and I wasn't coming, when I would say, try to convince myself that yes, I want to continue doing this, I didn't feel at peace. When I would say no, I didn't feel at peace either, because in my head, I could not reconcile this dream that I've had for so long with the reality that I was experiencing, which was burnout, basically, is how I could explain it. So because I refused to come to grips with the fact that you were wrong about your dream, or your dream is maybe not your dream, I could not. I could not. I was in denial. I was in denial. And if you know anything about, like, if you're in like New York City, New Jersey area or whatever, but especially New York City in particular, when people are in graduate school, all they talk about is going into private practice. The goal is private practice, being on your own, making a boatload of money, having your own schedule, you know, which is great. And so for a while, I let those voices tell me that that's what I should be doing, because that's what everyone was doing. So I'm like, okay, but I could not. I could not in good conscience go straight out of grad school and go into therapy. I'm like, I need a little bit more experience before I do that. So I let those voices be louder than my own intuition and gut. But I needed to experience doing therapy in order for me to find out that it wasn't actually my dream. So I don't regret doing it. I was just a little sad when I came to realize that my dream was not my dream, actually. So that was sign number one. Oh, when I imagined my life like 5-10 years down the line, and I inserted doing therapy day after day, I felt a sense of dread. That was a second sign. And I'm like, I don't know that I'm supposed to be experiencing that. I don't want to be thinking that my job is dreadful every day. And not to say that was not my whole entire experience, but if you're looking at your life down the line and that is the first emotion that comes, then that's probably a sign that, you know, this is not it. This is not it. And being a therapist is so rewarding. All of the accomplishments, the progress that the people that I've worked with have made my career like 1,000% better. I look back on those times, and it is by the grace of God that I was able to help the people that I helped, because I look at myself and I'm like, I don't know what I did, but I know I have this this gift and this also desire to serve and to help people, and that will take you farther. Of course, you need skill, you know, you need to be up to date on, you know, the best treatment models and all of those things, the most evidence-based practices, of course. But when all those things fail, when you feel like you don't know enough about all, you know, CBT, DBT, ACT, all of these things, it goes back to what you were born with. And what I know I was born with is caring for people, is listening to people, is witnessing or seeing like patterns that I feel like I'm fairly decent at, I would say. I don't want to boast, but I feel like I'm fairly decent at that. But yeah, it's rewarding, but I was feeling dread when I was thinking about it for the rest of my life. And I'm just like, I don't think I'm supposed to have this feeling. But I'm like, no, everyone feels this way at some point about their job, but which is true, I guess, but like not for long, right? It's only in periods. I don't know. I'm still figuring this out, right? Let's see. Sign number 3. Okay. Even when I was doing it on my own terms, I still felt this feeling of dread. And when I say doing it on my own terms, is I did end up getting in a private practice and doing it on my own and seeing people after my regular work hours. Okay. And so in the beginning, it was really cool. It was an adjustment, because not only are you like doing therapy, but like became like I'm running a business now, like a small business, on top of the admin stuff, on top of doing therapy and making sure that I'm up to date on my trainings, and also doing my full-time job, also having a life. So this could have been that I just had too much on my plate and I was doing too much, more than it was like that I didn't like doing it on my own. But truly, I did not like doing it on my own. I felt really isolated. I was already doing my full-time job as a therapist, like from home, and not seeing coworkers in person. So that felt isolating. Then doing private practice felt even more isolating. And there was this like pressure that came upon me, like, oh crap, I am responsible for the care of this person, not solely responsible, but when you're in private practice and like you don't have like that collaborative team, interdisciplinary team around you that can like, you know, say, hey, we should try this, or have you thought about this? It gets real. And I got in my head a lot, okay? And to a little point from this point is that there are a lot of therapists out there, okay? There are. And there are a lot of bad therapists out there, okay? Those are easy to find. Finding a good therapist is hard to find. Finding a bad therapist is easy to find. The way my personality is set up, I wanted to be a good therapist. So I would overextend myself a lot to care for people. And this is probably like a new therapist type of thing where you take on a lot of the responsibility, a lot of the burden, a lot of the work in therapy because you want to do a good job. And so that's my next point. Because I wanted to be a good therapist, I was willing to put in the work to do all of that. So whatever trainings that I needed to do and to pay for, if I needed to, you know, stay late to do notes, or if I needed to be a little bit extra and reach out to a client or check in or do a phone call, I was doing a lot, and I was taking on more responsibility than I should have. And I feel like if you want to be a good therapist, it will be hard for you to cut corners. Okay. And that's the problem that I ran into, because I could have been a terrible therapist, not follow up with my clients, not send, you know, book recommendations, not look up articles, not, you know, talk to family members and collaborate with them to find out the best treatment plan, not do this extra screening or what. But because I really, really cared, and because I took this responsibility very seriously, it ended up being too much. It ended up being too much for one person. And you know, it's easier when you're in a setting where you have a team to kind of carry and share the load. But when you're doing it on your own, it's hard. It got really, really hard. And I'm like, it's either, for me, it was like, I either do the most because I really, really want to help, or I'm a bad therapist. Like that was a very extreme thought that I had. And I'm sure there was somewhere in between, a balance that I could have had if I had, like, you know, more supervision. But at the time, it was just too overwhelming, and I was just like, I think I need to take a break, figure out my life, and then maybe revisit this at a later time. Which brings me to my next point. I felt like I was taking on too much responsibility for the mental health of the people that I was meeting with. It could be a me thing, but I think new therapists experience this a lot, because I've been in a lot of supervision and with new therapists. And I think this is just common when you're doing something for the first time and you want to be good at it. Like I said, you could point out a bad therapist. Like, they're not really going to be asking questions. They're not going to be insightful. They're going to be like quiet. But like, you know. But yeah, I was taking on too much responsibility. The next sign, I don't know what number we're at, but therapy is hard to measure. Like, your progress as a therapist is hard to measure. What you're going off of is what your clients tell you, so the feedback that they give you. But if you are afraid of receiving feedback, you're not going to ask for the feedback, and so you never receive feedback. And one of the modalities that I use with CBT is like the most used evidence-based treatment model. So of course I was using CBT, and a part of CBT is you ask for feedback. After every session, you ask for feedback, and at discharge too. So in regard to that, I did receive feedback, and that's the only way that not the only way, it's one of the ways that you can measure your progress, or how well or bad you're doing as a therapist, is by asking your clients. But that sometimes is difficult, because it's like, if you've been in therapy, like, just imagine your therapist asking you, how am I doing? What has been helpful for you, not so helpful for you? That's going to make you feel uncomfortable. I mean, I've been in therapy, and that I've called out my therapist on certain things, but it took me a really long time to do that, and it's really, really uncomfortable. So imagine you're asking for feedback. Sometimes most people are not going to be like completely honest, and so it's hard to tell. That I got in my head, I'm like, well, are they saying that this is helpful because they feel like they have to say that, or do they really mean that? So the only other way to measure is using screening measures. So like the PHQ-9, the GAD-7. PHQ-9 is Patient Health Questionnaire 9, which measures like, just Google it. I'm not gonna go into all of that, but like doing those measures every few weeks or so to see, okay, is this client less depressed, more anxious, less anxious, right? And sometimes those measures do not capture the whole experience of someone in their lives, right? So for me, as a person who likes to see, I want to see a visual of how well that I'm doing, and not that I'm fixated on numbers, because numbers make me nervous a little bit, but it was hard for me to really measure and see like how well I was actually doing. And that could be like I was too hard on myself and I'm like overthinking and I'm like kind of like type A, I don't know. But for me, that was one of the signs. I'm like, I don't know if I'm doing well. I mean, I guess there's other ways that you could tell, like if they keep coming back, but sometimes people don't come back because just therapy is uncomfortable. So like that can't be a sign on, I don't know. At this point, I'm just like rambling, but that was something that didn't fit my personality. And maybe that's just something that's a me thing, not necessarily like something that you actually need as a therapist, you know? Oh, this next one, I don't know what point we're at, but I started to have dreams about my clients' lives and their traumas. And me, I'm sensitive. I'm sensitive as in like, I don't know if I would call myself an empath, because I'm not sure that I fully understand that completely to be able to say I'm an empath. But I don't know how to explain this, but I feel there's some things that I feel deeply, and there are some things that I hear where I have no reaction at all. And I never know what that's going to be until I'm met with that thing. Do you hear me? Am I making sense? So something about therapy was I could hear, I don't know, I could hear a certain type of trauma story over and over again. And it gets to the point where you kind of get a little desensitized to it, like just a little bit, not to the point where I'm not like empathetic at all, but it's like, okay, I've heard this enough to know that it's common. It sucks that it's common, but I'm not going to cry about it in this session. Like it's not going to bother me after we meet, right? But then there were certain people, there's always just certain cases that just stay with you, that stick with you. And there are certain clients that you just click with, and you just have an attachment to them. We're human. You are going to have that attachment. And that's another thing too with therapy. It's like it felt so strange to connect with someone, but also have like a wall up with them. Like there's this wall of professionalism that you have to keep up, of this, like, you didn't have to be stoic, but like there is this, you have to be professional while also showing parts of your humanity, you know, and you're hearing difficult stories every single day. And it's not just one person, it's multiple people a day. And there's going to be one or two people that just stick with you, and you're going to carry it. And in the beginning, I was cool. There was like a few cases or whatever. I was like, oh my goodness, I don't think I could handle this. But then over time, it's like, okay, once I was more comfortable with doing therapy, I'm like, okay, this is not just all on me. We're using CBT, DBT. I'm just teaching this person skills. Like, this is not all my responsibility. Supervision really, really helps. But anyway, I was having dreams about certain cases, and it's distressing. It's difficult to the point where it's like I'm thinking about this person outside of work hours, and it's also possibly triggering something in me about something that I've been through. And so that was like, I'm like, well, if I'm seeing 5-6 people a day, 5 days a week, how will I know which story is going to really stick with me and that I'm going to carry? I didn't know until I met with the person. Like I said, you don't know which person you're going to really, really connect with until you meet with them, and the impact of their story. Like, you don't know how that's going to impact you until it impacts you. And so even now that I'm talking about it, there's this one particular case that's coming to mind that has stuck with me. And thankfully, it was one of the cases where at the end, like, we were doing CPT for her trauma, and at the end, she felt much better. Everything wasn't completely resolved, but it got to a point where at least this person wasn't crying throughout sessions. At least this person wasn't having night terrors anymore. But it was something that I mean, I'm still thinking about it. Like, I'm not having night terrors about it, but it's something that I'm still carrying with me. And I didn't want to carry that anymore. I'm just being honest. I didn't want to do it anymore. It was too much. It was too much. It was either I felt it very, very deeply to where it made me so sad outside of work hours, or I was so desensitized that I was just like blanking out a little bit. And I'm being honest, I did not want to do that. I did not feel like I could do that. Let me slow down. I did not feel that I could do that and be a good and present therapist every single day, showing up every single day. I just couldn't reconcile the two things. I couldn't find a way, and my camera died. But anyway, I tried. I couldn't reconcile both things, and so that was a sign for me to be like, I need to chill, take a back seat. Okay, the next thing is I feel like my personality didn't really fit well with therapy, at least with long-term therapy. For me, I'm a short-term girly. I'm solution focused type girly. Okay, I will be empathetic and validate you until no end, but we need to come to some type of resolution at the end. Okay, because venting is not the answer. It's not the answer. If you want results, venting has been proven not to actually be effective in therapy. Okay, and so because of that, I feel like specifically where I was, it worked for a while, but I just think doing it on my own, when I was doing private practice, I'm like, well, now that I'm on my own, how am I going to practice on my own? Am I going to see people for like years, or is it going to be for like 6 months or a number amount of sessions? I just felt like it didn't fit my personality. I needed a mix of administrative work with like client face-to-face work. And with therapy, it's just face-to-face work all the time, plus the burden of the admin stuff on the other end. And I'm like, this feels like too much. And so I just feel like, as far as my personality, it wasn't the best fit for that time in my life, which was a year ago actually. This next one was, I was not at peace. Even for the people that I enjoyed seeing, it started to feel like I did not want to do this anymore. Even for the people that I really, really liked, that I was, there was progress with, I'm like, wow, even with them, I'm feeling this way. I'm like, okay, maybe my brain is trying to tell me something. So the feeling, I was not at peace. I was not at peace. I did not have the peace. And this last one is really, 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 really important to me, because I am a learner. I love structured learning. I love to know that like I'm focused on one topic and I'm becoming an expert at that one topic. Not that you can truly be an expert, but at least like feel confident in one topic, one area. And with therapy, there's so many focuses that you can go into that I was interested in so much. I could not find a focus that I wanted to focus on, that it drove me nuts. It drove me nuts. And again, this could be a personality issue. This could just be a me thing. But I felt like I didn't want to be put in a box to where like I only wanted to be talking about EDs or focus on clients with like this type of trauma or with anxiety. I wanted to know about everything and focus maybe on one or two, but finding the time to do that and be a good therapist and live life, it was getting to be very, very difficult. So this last point is that I felt that I couldn't learn at the same pace as I was practicing therapy. And this is something that I brought up a lot in my supervision. I felt like, when am I going to have time to really immerse myself in a topic or in an issue while also doing therapy? I just could not figure it out. And it's not enough. Yes, you can go to a conference for a weekend. You could take a webinar here and there, but like, I'm talking about really immersing yourself into something. And there were opportunities for me to do that, like outside of work hours, and that would require like a time commitment, of course, and all this other stuff. And cool. But Life is lifing. Okay. Life is lifing. And so for me, it was like, I need to find a job that would not take so much mental and emotional energy out of me to where I still felt motivated and had energy to do those trainings or go to a conference or take a course for a semester and immerse myself in a topic. And that's where we come to present day. Present day, the work that I'm doing, it is more on the admin side, more of like managing, overseeing side, mixed with a little like face to face. And I love it. I love it. I love the mix of it because I don't feel drained at the end of my day. I feel like I can still have energy for the things that I enjoy after work. Like now, like I'm recording a YouTube video. I've been doing short form content. It could be also that like it's sunny every day in Florida and I'm just like, I just do better in the sun. But I feel like where I am right now, it's a good mix for my personality, the type A that likes to organize, create Excel sheets and track things, and I can track my own performance. I could, go over it with my supervisor and we create these goals, and I can easily track how well or not well that I'm doing. I love that for me. I love that for me. It makes me a little anxious because I'm like, okay, you got to do really good. But it fits my personality. And I also get to face with clients, with patients, right? So I'm getting the best of both worlds. And also another thing, before when I was doing therapy, I think which impacted my experience was I was doing it from home. Like I was working from home. So I started my therapy job during the pandemic. And so I feel like that really did impact my experience as a therapist. I feel like maybe if I started off in person, it may have been a little bit different. And towards the end, I did start seeing people in person, and I saw like how much of a difference it made to see people in person. And I think that if I ever did go back to doing, if I ever went back to doing therapy, it would have to be in person with the option here and there to do it via video, because I feel like it's more effective in person. You can read people's body language, you can connect a bit more. It's just a different vibe. I would do things a bit differently. Yes, that's another thing with this job. I am in person every day. I'm adjusting to it. It's a little tiring, but I love leaving my home and going to work and leaving work at work. With therapy, I felt like I could not leave work at work because work was in my home, and also I was carrying the emotions, the mental load of others every day. And did I want to go outside of my home after sessions at the end of the day? No, I wanted to go into bed and eat. Okay? So I love where I am now. Love this life for me. And I think I'm going to end it here because I feel like I've been rambling. This is a bit disorganized. I don't know if I've actually encouraged you or discouraged you from being a therapist, but one thing I would say is if you are considering being a therapist, go for it. You won't know if something is for you until you try it. And you'll never be a good therapist unless you start practicing. And that's how I learned. My supervisor at the time was just like, you just have to start. Just do therapy. And along the way, you will learn, okay? And it's normal to have the therapist jitters in the beginning and want to be perfect. That's a good sign that you want to do good work. But you are not solely responsible for someone's mental health, okay? Make sure you're getting supervision. Make sure you're getting support from other people around you. It is not just your responsibility, okay? You are a small piece in this person's story, this very, very large story, and I would not discourage you to pursue therapy. Just get lots of support if you're going to do it. And if you're at a point where you've been doing it for some time or not for some time, for a year or two, whatever, and you're reconsidering, listen to that voice. It could be telling you something important, and just take a break, take a breather. It may be that it's time for you to take a break and maybe come to it at a later time, or it may mean that you need to adjust. For me, I think I was seeing too many people weekly that led to the burnout. I'm not sure if I would have been seeing less people if that would have been a bit better for me. I don't know, because that didn't happen. You know, when you're working in certain settings, you have to meet quotas, you have to meet a certain amount of people, and so that could be it. But if I did ever return back to therapy, I would do things a lot differently. I would see less people. I would see them more short term. It would be more focused on one thing. Or maybe I would just do consulting or life coaching, since everybody want to be a life coach now. I'm like, how is that? What? I could do that. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm thinking about doing a video on reasons to become a therapist, if you were thinking about it. If that's something that interests you, let me know. If not, then I won't make it, because why? But thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this was an encouragement and it wasn't too all over the place. Also, I need to get the most out of this hairstyle, because my hair is never like this. Okay, so that's another reason I came on this camera raw. Okay, bye bye.